Ray, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Welcome to the My Life Counts podcast show, where we talk about anything dealing with mental health. My name is Jared Jones. I'm your mental health coach.
And here we go.
All right, welcome. My Life Count podcast show. We have a special guest. I'm here with Coach K. She's a mindset life coach, and she deals with women, and she works on their limiting beliefs. And her mantra is mindset. The shifting is up to you. So me and Coach K is going to talk about a topic that is, let's see, this topic is one that plagues a lot of people, most people. I would say most people.
I would say so.
But it definitely plagues a lot of people. So, Coach K, is there anything? I know I just gave you a quick intro, but is there anything that you want to add in it before we jump into this fear?
Oh, I love the topic. So we're going to discuss the unhealthy side of fear and the healthy side of fear. And I just want to add that I have been on a journey for a very long time to discovering who I am. I've battled addiction. I've suffered loss. I've suffered the death of my parents 7 months apart to cancer. I was angry, didn't know who I was, just kind of in a really dark, awful space. So I set out on a journey to discover me, to unlearn all the things that I had been taught, and to relearn and to go back and learn again. And in doing so, it caused me to do a lot of soul searching, looking in the mirror, so to speak, if you will. And who is this person? Who is she really? And that journey was a beautiful journey because I discovered me, not who anyone thought I should be, but I actually discovered me, which is why I'm here today. So I often tell my clients, I did the work so that I can come back and come for you. But I can't come for anyone if I don't know who I am. So I'm here to help people discover the 2.0 version of themselves. You know, it's so cliche. You hear a lot of times people say, well, I want you to become the best version of yourself. You know, we hear that a lot, but we really have to unpack what that means, because first, to help you become the better version of yourself, we have to uncover who you are. So in my journey, I coined my brand or my name, The Corner Truth. Because from this corner, you're going to always get truth. I'm going to come at you with nothing but truth.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah. That's good. And there's a lot of fear in learning or really acknowledging who you are. Right? Because a lot of us, I would venture to say that there's a lot of people who do not know who they are.
Yeah. So I would say this. When you ask people, who are you? They tend to tell you what they do.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a mother. I'm a director. I'm a budget officer. So this is how I normally introduce myself. I am. I am authentic. I am bold. I am beautiful, and I am creative. I am distinctive, and I am essential. I am fearless, and I am great. I am honorable, and I am integrity. I am joyful, and I am kingdom-minded. I am loving, and I am necessary. I am optimistic, and I am powerful. I am quintessential. I am respected. I am serene. I am talented, and I am unique. I am valuable, and I am yieldless to the control of others over me. I am pugnacious and I am zealous. I am not every woman. I am this woman. I am because the I am that I am created me. And that's who I am internally.
Hey, man. Hey. Look, I wish I had some organs and some drums. Cause you preaching already. You preaching.
Yes. I may have left the little letters out, but you get the gist of who
Oh,
I
yeah.
am internally. Now, externally, I'm a life coach, I'm a mother, I'm a leadership advisor, I am an author. Those are external factors about who I am. But it is important that we get to know who we are internally, because how you see yourself is how you show up.
Yeah.
And how you show up, people will always oblige you and treat you accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew, that's an important discussion to have. That's an important discussion to have, because I think most people identify themselves based on what they do. You're right.
Absolutely.
And I remember I was doing a group, and we were just talking about this. Who are you? And so I would name a name like LeBron James, and say, well, who is he? And everybody would say, well, he's a basketball player. And I was like, okay, so he's not a father, so he's not a son, so he's not. And then it's like, then the wheels start turning, and it's like, oh yeah, he is. Yeah, he's that, and he's that, and he's that. And then it's like, I'm more than what I do. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And we know that. I mean, inherently we know it, but I don't know. Most people still identify with what they do instead of who they are. And that's where the disconnect is, because if you keep identifying with what you do, then you lose who you are.
You lose your true identity.
Right.
And that goes the same for being a parent. So most people really don't know who LeBron James is. They don't. They know of him, but they don't know who he is.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So, all right. So we had wanted to talk about fear. And
yes.
So I know what sparked this for me is I was listening to another podcast, and they started talking about fear. And the guy, it was Eric Thomas. I don't know if you are familiar with Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. But he has a podcast called The Secret to Success podcast, and they were talking about fear, and he made a very good point about fear. And he was talking about how we fear the things we know. And so I was looking at it, and my whole thing is I grew up in the church. And so I've heard a lot of cliches.
Haven't we all? A lot of traditions, a lot of cliches and do's and don'ts. Yes.
And a lot of them bother me. Most of them bother me. And because some of them may sound good, and some people may mean well when they say them, but are they true? And so I'm always looking for, okay, what's the truth? And so then I started thinking about, okay, fear. What is fear? And so I wanted to start off with you. Like, what would be your definition of fear?
So fear, the unhealthy side of fear is projected thoughts into the future, holding you hostage in your current moment. So I always like to tell people, you need to stay in the present moment. The past is behind you. You haven't even come into the future yet. All you have is the present moment. So what that looks like is, I'll give you an example. About a year or so ago, I had to take my son to the emergency room. He had gone to the urgent care first. And I've never known an urgent care doctor to call an adult's parent. So mind you, my son is 27. So the urgent care doctor called me and was explaining some things to me and said, hey, you need to get your son to the emergency room immediately. So we get to the emergency room. I said, you know what? I'm not going to panic. I didn't even rush to go pick him up. I was cooking dinner when I got the call. And I said, I'm going to finish my dinner and I'm going to make him a plate and I'm going to take it with me because I have no idea how long we're going to be in the emergency room. The old Camilla would have shut everything down, made a mad dash out that door, mind racing. Oh my God, my son is going to die. Something's going to happen to him. But I didn't. I didn't. So this new Camilla took things into stride. Listen, you are in control of your thoughts. So we get to the hospital, some time goes by and they're running all these tests and I feel a spirit of fear begin to creep up in me. And next thing you know, those words were spoken to me. I could hear the spirit saying to me, you're projecting into the future and it's holding you hostage in your present moment. Stop asking, what if? Go with the now. He's here now. Start speaking over that situation now. Control your thoughts. And that's what happens when people get into an unhealthy state of fear. Their thoughts begin to wander. They start filling in the blanks like, what if this happened? Well, what if I don't have my rent on time? I'm going to be evicted. They don't settle down, or if I don't get this project done, I'm going to lose my job. Well, they're speaking life over their situation already, and it's negative, but they're speaking out of fear, and that's how it becomes unhealthy. Because, hey, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but want to talk about how the mind plays a huge role in that, because
Right.
that the body is a servant to the mind, right? So whatever the mind believes, the body is going to follow, right? So initially when I got that phone call, I immediately chose to change my thought process. And if you noticed in my story, did you see how my body followed? My body did not shut the stove off. My body said, okay, we can handle this. I took my time. I finished cooking the food. I made him a plate. And then I paced myself out the door. So if I had immediately drifted off into, oh my God, into panic mode, I'd have rushed out here. I could have caused an accident. I would have forgotten things. I wouldn't have been calm. And then I would have projected my fears onto my son without me even having to have said a word, because he could feel the energy.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Okay, so you said a lot there, but
mhm.
that last piece I want to piggyback on that, because I remember so I got 4 sons, and my second oldest, he's 15. But I remember he was about maybe like 2, maybe 1, maybe like 2 years old. And he was running, and he had ran into we had like a little lazy boy recliner, and he ran and he fell, and the handle hit him, split his forehead open. Right. And thankfully his mom grabbed him, and she was like panicking, but he wasn't able to see her. He saw me. So when I came out, he looked at me, and I saw he had it was the forehead, and the head bleeds a lot.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
he had blood all over his face. And so he saw me, and his response mimicked my response.
It mirrored yours. Yes.
And because I wasn't fearful, there was no fear in me. I saw it and I was like, okay, I know how to deal with this. Started wrapping him up. And I remember him watching me pretty much the whole time, blood trickling down his face. He wasn't crying or anything. But because he saw me and my response, it kind of gave him, oh, okay. So this is how I respond to this.
That's
right?
good. That's good.
This
That
is
good.
how I respond. And so now if he would have saw his mom, she was all over the place.
But you realize what you did. You taught him at a very early age how to respond in traumatic situations. You sowed a seed right then and there. You didn't even have to speak a word.
Right. And so that's where I was going, because fear in and of itself, I think, is a necessary emotion. And so we had talked about this previous talk, where if you're in the woods and you come across a grizzly bear and you see their cubs, fear is an emotion that you should feel. Things should kick in. That adrenaline should, the heart should start beating fast. Like, things should start happening. Because at this point, if fear, and in my opinion, fear is that emotion is focused around imminent danger. And so in this instance, you're dealing with a grizzly bear. You're in immediate danger. So you should feel fear. But what you were saying with the unhealthy fear is that we've taken that fear and we've learned how to almost
I want you to say that word one more time. We've done
learned,
what? One more time.
We've learned, right? Right? We've learned how to catastrophize. And before, because before, when we had talked, I was thinking, like, some of this is just irrational. Some of our fears are irrational. The fear of failure, and some people fear success, or the fear of public speaking, which for some reason is like one of the biggest fears. These fears, I used to feel like we have taken it out of context. But as I started to think about it, I'm like, well, actually, maybe it's just a matter of us catastrophizing. So, for example, when you say you with the hospital, and they say, okay, you need to go to the emergency room. Well, what do most people do in that situation? They don't think, okay, well, let me finish dinner, and let's just go see what they got to say, right? They jump to the nth degree, and they move the story 10 steps ahead.
They heighten it with their thoughts. With their thoughts.
With the thoughts. They catastrophize. They see the worst case scenario.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And so here it is, where nothing has happened. They said, okay, you need to come to the emergency room, but you cooking dinner, like nothing has happened. But what they end up seeing is danger. Their mind has taken them to this place where they're seeing the grizzly bear, even though the grizzly bear is nowhere they're not even in the woods.
Oh, that's good right there.
They're nowhere near. They're nowhere near the woods, but they see in the grizzly bear in their minds.
So that saying is true. My mind's playing tricks on me. Because the mind absolutely does. The mind plays tricks on you. And
Yeah.
so that's why it's so important to learn how to control your thoughts, because one, every action of man proceeds from a secret thought.
Mm,
Mhm,
mm.
mhm.
From a secret
Every
thought.
from a secret thought. Every action of man proceeds from a secret thought. So going back to what you were saying, I want to piggyback off
Mhm.
the healthy side of fear. It's a form of intuition, an alert,
Yes.
an inner alarm.
Yes. Yes.
When you're connected with yourself. Now, you can be fearful to the point where you harm yourself, even when it's like an alarm.
Mhm.
So still everything must be aligned. Now, granted, there are going to be some times where we're caught off guard, right? And fear is going to creep in, and we may respond impulsively, right? And may
Right.
not make the best decision. But for the most part, the point that you were trying to bring home is that the whole topic of this conversation. There's a healthy side of fear and there's an unhealthy side of fear.
Right.
So the healthy side is just that built-in alarm system. Hey, you know, you need to get out of here. You
Mhm.
need to run. You know, it's coaching you and telling you what to do. So we need to learn how to hone in and listen to that inner voice so that we respond from healthy emotions.
Yeah.
You know, so again, I'm going to get a little ahead of myself, but oftentimes in situations, people respond to the emotional environment, their emotional response, right? So that's how they make unhealthy choices. But when you respond not based on emotions, but based on outcomes, that's when you make better choices, because you're not responding to the emotion. That means that you have put a pin in things, you've paused, and you've taken a moment to think about things, and you're looking at the bigger picture, the outcome. And
Yes.
that's when you make better decisions. But the unhealthy side of fear leaves you in that emotional responsive situation where you don't make the wisest choices.
Right. That emotional response is typically reflex. It's something that's learned. And so
I want you to say that word as often as you can. Learned.
learn.
I want your
Hey,
audience to get this. I want you to
yeah,
say it again. Spell
yes.
it. Learned. It is learned.
Learned. It is learned. You know, we all have learned how to respond to our emotions. And you know, I often say this in my groups because oftentimes people that I talk to believe that emotion equals response. What do I mean by that? Well, they'll say something like for example, okay, you said it a couple of times on here, fear, and then it equals running. Like you feel the fear, so you run. But in the same grizzly bear situation, you may have somebody run, you may have somebody fight, you may have somebody sit there and pee on themselves and freeze, right? And so you have different responses. So fear doesn't equal any response. It equals the response that you've learned. So that's why when people get angry, people will say, you know, somebody get angry and they cuss you out. And that's just who I am. No, that's how you learn how to respond to that anger. You know, if somebody get angry and they get physical and they want to fight, that's how you learn how to address that anger. But the anger doesn't equal punching. The anger is the alarm. Fear is an alarm. And so how you respond to that fear, that's
What makes the difference?
what makes the difference. and
Sure.
you've learned that over time, and that's partly why that's partly why when people deal with fear, they live in it, and they live in it because they continuously respond the same way. And so what ends up happening is you have I always teach like that you have a thought, an emotion, and then an action.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a thought and you catastrophize that thought, you take it to the nth degree, and then all of a sudden you're face to face with a grizzly bear in the woods while you're sitting in your kitchen making dinner, right? Your thought has taken you to the woods with the grizzly bear when you're actually physically making dinner. So then now all of a sudden, since you're there mentally, emotionally, you feel the fear.
And let's unpack that. So what happens? Because remember what I said early on, the body is a servant to whatever the mind believes. So
Right.
how does the body begin to follow? It begins to follow in a sense of anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
panic attacks,
Mm-hmm.
frozen.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the body responds.
Right.
And so let's go back. Let's do some more unpacking. So we talked about learned behaviors because that's what they are, right?
Right.
And we talked about people saying, well, that's just the way I am. Let's unpack that a little more. So, no, honey, that's not the way you are. That's how you were taught to be. That's how your environments have shaped your attitude, have shaped your mindset.
Right.
And as I stated earlier, how you see yourself is how you show up to others.
Right.
Right. So we all know that the computer, right? It was modeled after the human brain. Mm-hmm.
Right. Right.
So whatever you program that computer to do, that's the response that you're going to get.
Yes.
So on a computer, you download files, you save your files, and this gets good. Yes, yes, yes. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about these files. So what happens is in your environment, your subconscious mind loves to be in control. So what it does is it stores files on how you responded when you were 6, how you responded when you were 10, how you responded in your 20s. It's like a familiarity type thing. And so it stores this information so that when you're in a like situation, it brings that up. This is how you've responded in the past. And that is how it becomes a learned behavior, which is why it is so imperative. Repetition is imperative.
Yes.
Don't get it twisted, So when you watch television, you see the same commercials being played over and over and over again. That's how advertisement works.
Yes.
And that's how you are being programmed. When you're in a car, you're listening to the radio, and you will hear sometimes, depending on what radio station you're listening to, you can hear the same song 3 times in less than an hour. That's called repetition.
Right.
That brings me to the point of affirmation. Who do I want programming my mind? So the computer system has what's called a motherboard, right? Where it joins all the components together, right? So that is your mind. So we need to train our bodies to align with our mind, with our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so we do that because we want to erase all the files that are conscious on how we learned to respond to situations. And we do that. We let me just back up a little bit. We often tell people, well, you need to change your thoughts. Okay. Telling people to change their thoughts, it does nothing. You need to
Right.
teach them, explain to them, what does it mean to change your thoughts? Well, here's a perfect example. Affirmations are extremely important. It's that repetition, right? So when I was doing my work, oh my God, if you had caught me 2 years ago, even a year ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you with that confidence who I am inside. I had to go and change my thoughts. I had to work on repetition. I had to learn that I had been programmed from day one to believe what other people wanted me to believe. Because trust me, if you don't know who you are, people will always tell you who you should be. And
Right.
so that leads into you accepting a false truth about yourself.
Good, because so there's a couple things I wanted to jump on. But I'm gonna come back to those affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're dealing with fear and this idea of, because you mentioned anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Something that I struggled with for years and I had no idea what it was.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. What
Mhm.
is anxiety?
Fear. Fear. It's the unhealthy fear, because what happens is your mind begins to run away from you.
Mhm.
So our language means everything to us, right? So you've heard it said that life and death are in the power of the tongue. So you can either speak life into your situation or you can speak death into your situation. And so remember, I said every action of man proceeds from a secret thought. So you have to be careful what you fear, because you're the one who brings that thing to pass
Right.
through your thoughts. Because your thoughts, your body is going to follow what the mind believes.
Right.
It's just as simple as that.
A lot of people uh uh uh
Oh,
Eckhart
fear.
Tolle. Sorry. Eckhart Tolle has the book the Power of Now.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people talk about being in the present. But it's almost impossible for us not to think of the future. Right? Because we talk about goals, we talk about plans, we talk about we have to think about the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard something powerful not too long ago. And basically the guy was saying what the story of the future is your story. And it's made up. Like the future has not happened. So no
Yes.
matter what the future is, no matter
Yes.
what it is, it's made up. So why would you choose to make up a story where it's because
I love that.
fear projected in the future is
Yep.
anxiety, right?
Exactly.
But what if you're a kid and you know that you're going to an amusement park tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do you have fear? No.
No.
But are you thinking about the future? Yes.
Yes.
But you're excited. You have excitement. Now you're doing the same thing. The only difference is that your thought is in a different place. You're thinking about the good that's about to happen,
Exactly.
and it still has not happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is more likely to happen because you're projecting that excitement into it, to where, oh, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I know, like, even when I was a kid, going to an amusement park or something like that, if I was excited, I could go back as an adult and be like, hey, I was really excited about this, but the excitement had built up so much that it didn't really matter what happened. I had already anticipated the excitement, and so I pushed it into my future. And so now when I get there, you know, I'm having fun with
Mhm.
with dirt and a rock. And it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go see this person. Oh, they not even there. It's the dirt and the rock and stick, and we're gonna have some fun. And
Mhm.
but I've pushed it into the future.
Mm.
And we do the same thing with fear. And what the person was saying is that we have a choice. And
Say that again.
we have a choice.
One more time.
We have a choice. And so when you're focusing on the future, why choose why choose to push that fear into the future? Why choose to think that like you're not gonna get the job, like they're like you know they're this public speech is gonna go horrible? Why think that instead of thinking, oh, this is gonna be a walk in the park, this is gonna be a great speech, this is gonna change like. So I guess uh, my question is, why do we choose to project fear into the future when we have a choice? Why do we make that? Why do you think a lot of people make that choice?
It's a natural response. It goes back to uh, environments, how they have shaped our belief systems, our mindsets. Now, let's keep it 100. You know, um, Oftentimes our body will respond. If you're going to do something that you've never done before, you may feel like a flutter. Some people
Mm-hmm.
call it butterflies.
Butterflies, right?
Your heart may start racing. Those are all natural responses because you know you're getting ready to step into unfamiliar territory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You
And
know,
so the key is to that is to pull those thoughts back in. Because what happens is, again, it goes back to what I was speaking on just a moment ago. Our language
mm-hmm.
is everything. The way we communicate, certain words that we use, we automatically, our mind is telling our body to remain in a victim state when we use words like ed words, and we could talk about that a little later. But the way we communicate, our language means everything. And so we need to stop asking the what if questions, because that is a future question.
Mm-hmm.
So my philosophy is I win no matter what.
All I
It's
do
simple.
is win, right?
I win
Yeah,
no matter what.
right.
Because if I walk up on that stage as a speaker and I'm a failure, what's the worst that can happen? I'll learn what not to do the next time. So I don't see that as a loss.
Right.
People worry about their reputation. Well, see, when you do that, that means you expect your validation to come from others and you have not yet validated yourself. So when I know who I am walking up on that stage and I flop, I win because I've learned something. Hey, maybe next time I need to be more audience specific, and curtail my speech to my audience, knowing who my audience is, or my voice may have been a little high pitched. How can I prepare for that later? Or, I may have learned that, hey, maybe I need to go to bed an hour earlier. I felt myself getting a little tired. So therefore, I forgot a piece of my information. These are learning curves.
Right.
I didn't lose anything because 9 times out of 10, when I got up there, I'm still going to get paid. I'm still going to get paid for that speaking engagement,
Right.
And
Right.
so I still have a chance to revamp myself. But see, this is what happens when we seek our validation from other people. It robs you of who you are. If I
Yeah.
go out there and I'm being my authentic self, I lose nothing. I win. I win. I can't sit there. No matter what happens in this life, I win.
Yes.
Because I have learned to find the good in everything. That's not to say that I don't ever go through life and I'm hurt by something. Of course I do, because I'm
Right.
human.
Right.
And like everyone else, I am a flawed human being. But there are certain principles that I have adopted and I've learned to carry out in my life. And that is my philosophy. You know, if you're stricken with an illness, well, one, you can be healed. You can be.
Yeah.
People find it hard that they can be, to believe that they can be healed. You can be. Now, will everyone be healed? No, because death is a part of life. You're not going to be here on this earth forever. So you still win. I mean, I hate for it to sound harsh, but if you're not cured of that illness here on earth, it's not going to be with you always.
Right.
You're going to leave this earth. You're going to die, and the illness is going to die with you. You win no matter what. It's what you do in the interim when you're placed, when life situations are placed before you. I'll say this. I heard someone say the other day that I kind of gave it my own little spin. Life is not thrown at you. That's the spin that I gave it. I think he said something like, life doesn't hit you. But I flipped it to say, life isn't thrown at you. Life is lived through you. And what I mean by that, the premise behind that is, we're like, oh my God, we're always in a victim state of mind. Why is this happening to me? Oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. That's a victim state of mind. That's life being thrown at you, right?
Yeah.
But when you flip it, life is lived through you. That means that you have some kind of control there. And that control comes from the choices that you make, how you choose to handle the situation. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. And so two things. Number one, because you just yeah, I need to remember that. First thing was I was thinking about the things that we say, the acronyms, the cliches. And one of the things is, you was just talking and you was talking about how you win, right? No matter what, you win. But oftentimes people don't think like that. I was listening to Les Brown's motivational speaker, and he had a speech a long time ago. It's a great speech, but in the speech he talked about Murphy's Law.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have adopted and learned
Yes.
to fear anything, because
Whatever could go wrong
will go wrong, right? And it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, the words that we use, we can either create life or we can create death.
Absolutely.
And when we choose to live by what can go wrong will go wrong, then a lot of stuff is going to go wrong.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
expect it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly.
Right? It's whether you want to call it self-fulfilling prophecy or energy or whatever, you're geared in that direction. So it's impossible for everything to go right. Even if it does go right,
because you're blocking it.
You're blocking it.
You're
But
blocking
the thing is, even if it does go right, you can't see it.
Hello.
You can't see it. You'll sit up here and say, man, that speech was horrible, but you didn't see the one person that saved. You didn't see the one person who came up to you and was like, man, that saved my life. You're sitting there like, man, I missed this point. See, I knew this was going to be terrible. And it's like, yeah, because you think that way, you're missing so for you, yeah, everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
Did go
You
wrong.
you missed everything that went right.
But you know what that person also did in that scenario? They projected their insecurities and their lack of confidence. That's exactly what happened. And it goes back to the point that you were saying earlier. They can't see.
Yeah.
They can't see.
Yes. And so that's where I wanted to go, because in dealing with fear, I often think that when we're talking about our future, and I'm not talking about imminent danger,
Mm-hmm.
you should feel fear when a grizzly bear is coming at you. But oftentimes that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is our insecurities. We're talking about how we
Our
feel about
inadequacies.
our inadequacies, you know. And so you had mentioned affirmations. And I don't know if you've ever been in a place where the affirmations didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know, like, whenever and I want to get your input on how, if somebody does feel fear,
Mm-hmm.
it, 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 because there's some people, I mean, they you know, the only thing they do is they get up and they cut on the news, and they hear about death, and they hear about, you know, all this stuff, and then they're fearful of walking outside the door, right? And so their whole life is fearful. They're fearful their entire life, and it's hard for them to make a move. And so even when you say, hey, you know, you could do something different, you could try something different, the fear kicks in, right? Because they fear the unknown. They fear because they live in a state of fear.
Mm.
So if I'm living in a state of fear, uh, how do I get out of it?
One of the you just hit on a key point. It's a state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a state of being. And we certainly do not have time to discuss the news part, because I have lots to say on that.
Me
But I
too.
will say this. There are, sadly, a lot of people who won't leave their homes because of the news, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that they need to realize is that the news is doing their job.
Mm. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah.
See, this is why I'm called the corner truth.
Uh-oh.
And what you do with the truth is up to you. That's why I said my mantra is mindset. The shifting is up to you.
Right.
So they know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
They create all this panic. They hype everything. They desensitize you. They desensitize people who look like us against one another.
Mm-hmm.
It's their job.
Mm-hmm.
And I would advise anyone, if you're big on the news, take a break, change your diet,
Yeah.
change, your diet doesn't always look like the types of food that you put in your body. It's what you put in your body, period. It's what you hear, is what you see, is
Yeah.
what you think.
Yeah.
Because when you think pure thoughts, you make better choices.
Mm.
When you think clean, you act clean. When you think clean, you respond differently, you act differently. So you can't think clean if you've been programmed to think dirt,
Mm.
because your mind is being clouded. You've been given all of these subliminal messages all of your life. I think you and I had a conversation once that the late great Dr. Miles Monroe, he stated, I love this. I say this often because this has now become a part of me. If your culture and your environment doesn't teach you the truth, then you will believe a lie, even about yourself. And that becomes the philosophy through which you influence other people. Mic drop. Boom.
Boom. It is. It is. It is. And that's how you create generational curses.
Say it again. Say it again. Speak those words again.
That's how you create
exactly
generational curses. Because
Absolutely.
because just like my son was watching me at 2 years old to see how I responded, our kids, grandkids are watching us.
Mhm.
And as we respond in this, and this is why it's hard for people to break cycles, not only people, families,
Yes.
because
yes.
everybody, and I always go to, we always talk about what people do,
Mhm.
but I move past that and go towards not the habits that we have, but the habits of thought that we have. Because those habits of thought is what keeps us where we are.
And kills us.
And kills us. Yeah.
Mhm.
And the funny thing is that we all are we all have faith. You know, it's funny because when you talk about the church, we talk about faith.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the reality is we all have faith.
Yeah, we absolutely do.
All
Talk
have
on it.
faith. And
Speak on it.
we're all practicing. The only difference is, is that when you have faith that you're
Mhm.
gonna win,
Mhm.
somebody has faith that they're gonna lose.
Mhm.
I can't recall who said this first, but I've heard it many times that the person who says he can and the person who says he cannot are
Mhm.
both normally right. Right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
those people, both of those people are practicing faith.
Absolutely. Teach
They're both
today.
practicing faith.
Teach
And
your audience today. Yes.
and so, but they have the choice to practice their faith in whichever direction they want to. And you can say that the person who says he can is crazy and no he can't, but oftentimes that person, you know, who was it? I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger. I heard Arnold Schwarzenegger say it, but I've heard it said before that, basically the thing that, let me see, how did I say it right? Basically, if it hasn't been done before, that's fine until it hasn't been done before until it's been done.
Mhm.
That's not the quote, but basically it hasn't been done before until it's been done. Like the guy who broke the 4 minute mile, right?
Mhm.
Before that, people didn't believe that it could be done. After that, everybody's running 4 minute miles, right?
It's
the
that
the guy
belief system.
the guy that he ran the 2 hour marathon.
Mhm.
Nobody thought it could be done. Yeah, I'm pretty sure people are going to start doing that because we're always practicing faith, but
Mhm.
it's like, in which direction are we practicing it? And oftentimes we're practicing it in the direction of fear.
Yep.
And so back to these affirmations, because you brought up the affirmations, and I think that this is extremely important to help us overcome fear, to overcome, because but I've come across a lot of people who practice affirmations, and they'll take it and put it on their mirror, and I am bold, I am beautiful, I'm strong, I'm powerful, and they'll say it and they'll repeat it and say it 2-3 times a day. Every time they look in the mirror, they say it and they repeat it, and then they'll come to me and they're like, well, yeah, I tried that, but it didn't work. And you mentioned, oh, you said it so well. And I'm gonna mess it up. But something about us being uh programmed on secret thought. Is that what you
No,
said?
every action of man proceeds from a secret thought.
Yes.
So there's three
That
things I want to address in that.
Okay.
First of all, when you say people come to you and say, well, I've said the affirmations, but nothing's changed, that's because a transformation hasn't taken place yet. The words that they spoke hadn't connected with their soul. They did not. They were minus the belief. See,
Yes.
it goes back to, in order for that transformation to take place, they must believe the words that are being spoken.
Right. Right.
So what's happening is they're still struggling internally with the lies that they have believed about themselves. So the transformation cannot take place because it's lacking that belief, and it hasn't connected, it hasn't resonated with their soul. So you touched on faith. Everyone has faith. That is an absolute. That's how we were created. We were created that way. Human beings, we were created to have faith. It's the same thing. We were all created to have a free will, to have choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you choose to do with the power that you have. And so there has to be a connection. I'll say this. You know, the soul attracts what it harbors. The soul attracts what it harbors. So, for instance, if I keep getting involved in these, I keep meeting a certain type of man, right? And I'm like, okay, why do I keep attracting this type of man? Well, it's because it's what I harbor in my soul. You attract what you mirror, and people don't realize that.
Yeah.
You attract what you mirror.
Yeah.
So if I want a decent man, you know, I have to first show up decent.
Yeah.
So I have to show up to match my expectations. So if I'm expecting to meet a man that's going to love me the way that I desire to be loved, I first have to show up loving myself the way that I want to be loved.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So if I show up in a manner that does not reflect self-love, guess what I'm going to attract? A man who doesn't love me. A man who's only there for the moment.
Right. Right.
So there has to be that connection. We have to learn our language. We have to speak our language. It has to get down into the soul. So, you know, are you playing with the affirmation? You know, let's do some digging. You know, it's time for you to do a map of exploring yourself. You know, what is it? What's hindering you? You know, these are questions you need to ask yourself. Why do I think? You know, because we can lead you all day long, and we can only get inside of you as much as you open that door. Right?
Right.
So if you just leave it cracked, we can't get in.
Right.
Really, right. In that crack, you're literally just, you're not even trying to open the door to walk out. You're just trying to squeeze through that crack.
Right.
So
right.
There's work you need to, there's work that needs to be done. If you're saying these affirmations and the repetition is not sinking, there's no synergy there, you need to start exploring why. There is a blockage somewhere. There's something that I'm still holding on to. It's minus belief somewhere, because I could tell you what it is. You're looking yourself in the mirror and you don't believe the words that you're speaking. But I will say, I would encourage anyone to continue to look in the mirror and to continue to speak those words until they become a part of who you are. And for some people, that's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a month's time. It depends on how many files you have stored on your hard drive, on that computer. And so that computer, when things get when there are corrupt files on a computer, it often has to be reprogrammed.
Right.
So there are corrupt files on your hard drive, your thought process, and it has to be reprogrammed. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's not an easy fix. But with consistency and commitment to do the work, change is inevitable. Transformation is inevitable. The shifting is up to you.
You said a lot of things there. One thing I want to piggyback on. No, let me come back to that. The one thing I always tell when I'm doing groups and I'm working with somebody is that, because say that one more time, the secret thoughts.
Mhm.
How did you say
Every
that again?
every action of man proceeds from a secret thought.
Yes. And so what I always say is that the one person you cannot trick, the one person you can't lie to, you can lie to me all day.
Mhm.
You can lie to your friends, you can lie to your family. The one person you cannot lie to is yourself,
Come on.
because that subconscious mind takes the
Come on.
score. It
Mhm.
knows every single thing that you've done.
Mhm.
Now,
Those files.
those files, it has it.
Mhm.
It has a record of it.
Mhm.
Now, the thing is, what I find is that when people struggle with fear and they're projecting it to the future, they're not wrong. And this becomes the issue, because you can get up and you're going to give a speech, and you could talk about all of the failed speeches you've given. You could talk about all of the things that could go wrong. You could talk about Murphy's Law. You could talk about all these other things. And it's like, though, you're you're not lying. Oh, I gave a terrible speech last time. And it's like, yeah, you're not lying. And that's what makes it stick. Because what I find is that what makes a belief stronger is that it's true. You find the truth, the truth in it, the essence of it. It's true. And so when you're trying to reverse, and now you're trying to, you think that you're a weak person, so you say that you're strong, but you have all this evidence to prove that you're weak. You got a ton of evidence. You can go back. You got a journal full of evidence to prove how weak you are, how much of a failure you are. And the thing is, and you know, you have that inside of you, and that is your truth.
That is your virtual reality. That is your virtual world that you live in. So I love when you said that it is truth. I felt at this speech or what have you, it is true, because that is that person's virtual reality. That's their virtual world, and that's how they see themselves. And like you said, they have a journal, everything in their files that speak to why they can't. And one thing I neglected to speak on that moment ago, I wanted to address that can't part.
Mhm.
Can't is a condition.
Mm.
Won't is a choice. So if I have a severed leg, I can't walk on two legs because I only have one. That's a condition. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Won't is my choice. It's a choice.
Right.
So I say that because I need people to understand how your language, again, is everything. How you're showing up and your communication and how your communication is affecting your life.
Right.
So when you start incorporating certain truths, it will eventually begin to push out the lies that were spoken over you or that you have adopted as your belief system. Which brings us to another thing. Let's challenge the audience to challenge their belief system. And so it ties into that example that you gave earlier about the individual, being repetitive with the affirmation, but there's no change.
Mhm.
They need to go back and challenge their belief system.
So to that point, right? So here's the thing. Just like things are true, the negatives
Mhm.
are true
Mhm.
that they point out, because like, you can work with somebody and they will tell you all of the reasons why they are whatever. And it's like they're not lying. Like they're not
No,
making up these situations,
not
right?
at all.
But the flip side of that is whenever you pick up anything, there's always two sides. What they say, always two sides to the coin, right? There's always there's always a left and a right. There's always a flip side of everything, right? And so it's a matter of what side you're looking on. And so with the affirmations, the problem that I find is that a lot of people are making affirmations and they're still looking on the wrong side of the paper. It's like I write my affirmations down on the front side
Mm-hmm.
of the paper, but on the back side of the paper, I
Mm-hmm.
have a list full of why I'm weak. And I want to be strong. I write that on the front. But on the back side, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm only looking at what the things that confirm that I'm weak. I never take the time to look at because I guarantee you that you have things in your life that proves that you're strong. Just haven't looked at them.
Mm-hmm.
Just haven't focused on those things. You know,
Absolutely.
often, I mean, we just went through a couple of hellacious years through this COVID pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anybody who's still around should have much evidence to prove their strength,
Resilience.
their
That they have
resilience,
resilience.
right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
But what am I looking at? Because I could be looking at that. And so what I find is that a lot of times when people are doing their affirmations, they're still focusing on the negative. So they're saying their words and they're empty words,
Yeah.
because words and it's funny because I was thinking about what you said earlier, because I'm much like you. Words matter. Words matter.
Words
Words matter.
matter. They are so powerful. Oh.
But also, and so I was getting into the words that we say. Like I'm big on the words that we use, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to and this is why, like, even the word fear brought something up, because I'm like, should we be using that word, and should we be using it the way we're using it? But but it's the words that we use are extremely important. But at the same time, and I sound like I'm contradicting myself, they're not. The words are important and they're not. What is important is the meaning. If somebody comes and I don't know if you speak any foreign languages, but if somebody comes and cusses you out in Mandarin, you
Not
know,
Mandarin.
I don't know. So, right. They cuss you out in some foreign language, right? And it doesn't mean anything because it doesn't mean anything to you. Like the translation of those words doesn't. So the word, the sounds that are coming out of their mouth don't mean nothing, right?
Oh, that's so good. That I have. Oh my God, that's so good because that's what's happening with people who are repeating the affirmation. It ties back to what I was saying earlier. There's a disconnect there, right?
Yes.
So they're just sounds coming out of their mouths because they're disconnected from the belief system, which is blocking the transformation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
just they're empty words that have not taken root. But we can talk about root in a second. Go on.
Ooh, look, we're gonna need multiple shows on this. We're gonna need to keep, but you know, I do want to. All right, so because I don't want to leave my people who are fearful of life. I don't want to leave them in the state of fear and like hopelessness. So if there was one thing that you could say, okay, you know, if you are in a state of fear, and this is your normal and you're trying to get out of it, what is one thing that you could give to encourage them to be able to get out of, or not even get out, because I think that's probably, I think oftentimes we talk about,
Well, we do want to get out. We want to exit.
we do want
Right.
to exit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like but oftentimes it feels like you're in California and you're trying to get to DC in one jump. And it's like it, that may not be a jump. It may take, and so but what can they do to at least start traveling towards DC? You get what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is something that they could do that will get them moving in the right direction?
Get out. And I'm not being funny.
You
Get
mean
out.
what?
And so let me unpack that. What I mean by that is because I'm not being insensitive to anyone's state of being. Let me just clarify that. Sometimes depending on people's mind and how it's built, it may be missing something that may require a little jolt of some herbs, some medicine, a little additional assistance. So I'm not insensitive to that, right? But when I say get out, I try to refrain from saying I'm trying to do something, right? Because I'm either going to do it or I'm not.
Right.
And so again, this whole segment we've been talking about that mindset. So if you tell yourself I'm getting out of this, then you start focusing on your steps toward getting out. And that's what I mean by get out.
Gotcha.
And those steps could look like, you know what? I watch the news 12 hours a day. I'm going to narrow it down to 3 or whatever that looks like, but
Right.
you're taking steps, you're getting out.
Right.
And once you train your mind to set the direction, that's when your body is going to follow. So that's, because when I wholeheartily believe when people say, well, I'm trying to do something, it's a hindrance.
Yeah,
It sets
that's
them
a
back.
whole nother podcast. Because I'm with you on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
that's why I
get
said,
out.
get out. Get out.
Get out. Get out.
Yeah.
Out.
And that get out could mean get out of your head.
Mm-hmm.
Get out. Whatever that looks like to you, just get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oftentimes that's where they are. They're stuck in their head.
Yeah. Yeah. Get out.
Get out.
And I think that's relevant on many levels. Many levels.
Mhm.
Get
So
out.
that get out.
Get
That
out.
get out.
Get out.
Out.
Get out.
And that again, that looks like, we're not being insensitive to anyone's situation. The get out is just taking the necessary steps that you need to move forward.
Yeah.
Get out. Get out of your head and close the door to people renting free space in your head.
That's good. That's good. Well, look, Coach K, we can talk for hours on this. And in the future we will. But but right now we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. And I think that's a good place for anybody who's dealing with living in this fear, to get out, to create the mindset to want to get out. Because as you stated earlier, like, you have to hold up, I got it. Mindset, the shift is up to you, right?
The shifting
is up to you. And so and there's so many people who are living in fear, and the first step is wanting to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, not everybody wants to get out. Not everybody wants to get out. And I know that's a whole nother show.
Ooh, that's a whole nother show.
I know. But for those who want to and are ready, first step, you got to make your mind up to get out. And then we can move forward from there. But Coach K, this has been amazing. Thank you.
Yes, it has.
Thank you
for having me.
Yes.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. And look, we will continue having conversations like this, because I think this is it's needed. It's needed.
It is.
You know,
It is.
There's a lot of people talking about mental health, but we need to talk about it on a more substantive level.
Absolutely.
Like this. So
unpacking. Yes.
Yes.
Unpacking platforms.
Yes. That's it. So on that note, Coach K, thank you. And everybody else, peace. We'll see you next week.